Good morning, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. Have you ever wondered, I don't know, something? We've got an incredible guest for you. Boom. Good morning, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. I'm Ryan Morris, and as always, I'm here with your host, Nicholas D. Smith. Right before we went on the air, my phone, the camera just shut off. I accidentally clicked on a message, and so I couldn't see what I was going to talk about anymore, but I just rolled with it because that's what we do.
You haven't,
yes, Nick's by a pool. I'm in a laundry room, so it works.
You got the sun sneaking over onto my eyeballs.
Yeah. He's gonna get a suntan. I'm gonna get cleaned.
I'm gonna have a tan that runs right here, just like one line. That's the weirdest tan I've ever seen.
Yeah, and now you're definitely gonna want to go to YouTube and subscribe. So hit the alert button so you can know when we get a tan every single day and time. Today I'm so excited because today is an incredible day. We have so much lined up, and but we get to kick the day off here with a very special guest. Nick, will you introduce our guest for us?
I would love to. So let me dive into this. Ben Keene is a veteran of the U.S. Army who served from 1999 to 2008. He served as a communication expert, providing the critical voice and data network to the commanders on the battlefield. So he was deployed in 2003 to Iraq with the 101st Airborne Division. And so just a phenomenal human being. He was in 2019 paired with his medical alert service dog, Bolt. And I don't know if we'll see Bolt today. Bolt is a blue bicolor female German Shepard who was raised and trained by the staff of Guardian Angels medical service dogs. It's a Florida-based company that provides trained medical alert service dogs to disabled veterans and first responders. So I don't know the direction we're going to go with the show, but if Bolt's there, we'd love to see Bolt and then just really dive into your story. So was that a good intro?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Good morning, everybody. Yeah. Not sure if you're going to really see Bolt. She is right behind my chair here.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Doing her job.
Yeah.
She is a little camera shy. She's not as well versed at this kind of stuff as I am. So
yeah, I probably won't ask her many questions, so we'll hold off on that. Ben, let's go back in time with you if we can. Let's look at your beginnings and wherever you want to start. Usually we'll start somewhere at a point where you had an awakening of some sort or an awareness of kind of how you're playing life, or how life was or how you thought it was, and then you had a change or a transformation around it. That might be somewhere in the military, that might be in childhood, and that's up to you. Yeah. Do you have a start point that you want to begin with?
Well, I really think, for me personally, a start point would really be when I made the decision to enlist. Back in 1999, I was obviously in high school, and my high school was in a small farm area in Pennsylvania, in Lancaster County, aka where all the Amish people are. No, I am not Amish. Don't let the beard fool you.
But we actually have a friend that is.
I have several friends. Yeah. They're amazing people. I mean, shoot.
Yeah.
But no, I made a decision to enlist basically because I knew that college wasn't the right call for me at that time. So I knew my options were to either try to find some sort of work and live out my days in Lancaster County or do something different. And obviously I chose the latter. So I made a decision to enlist. Now fast forward to today, even with all my ailments, I don't think the decision will be different. Oh, there's Bolt. There she is.
Oh, hey. There she is. Hey, Bolt.
No, but then so that was awakening number one, was finding out, sort of where I wanted to go. Because, like most kids, I mean, I got a 16-year-old and a 15-year-old, and they're entering a stage in life now where like, what's next for me? What do I do? How do I get there? That kind of thinking.
Yeah, let's hang with that for a minute, because that's a pivotal decision. I know a lot of kids don't know the direction they want to go with their lives, and a lot choose into the military at that point because of the structure and the career path that it can create. I mean, when you went into that, did you have any idea that it would be what it was for you? I mean, does that make sense?
Not really. This is going to sound kind of dumb, but not really.
Yeah.
I knew that there was structure, and that sort of thing in the military. But I didn't realize how much of a hold it would have on me, even to this day. I mean,
yeah,
I still get my hair cut short because I can't, like, even though I can grow the beard out, when my hair gets too long, I can still hear my last first sergeant's voice yelling at me to get my hair cut.
Wow.
But I think
I just can't grow hair, Ben.
Yeah, see, that's the other thing too. I'm balding, so I figured I'm just gonna help it out and like style it, right? I'm
gonna change my answer though. When people say, "Well, what's wrong with your why do you keep your hair short?" I'm gonna be like, I had somebody yelling at me about my hair. So
there you go.
First sergeant, first sergeant was yelling at me.
It's a much cooler story than male pattern baldness,
right? But no, but that's also the one thing I knew I needed too.
Right.
Was to have that kind of structure, not to get too far off topic, but I really think that the military is good for anybody. And this is not a recruitment ad or anything, but I mean, I'm a firm believer that serving, whether it's 2 years, 3 years, 8.5 years like I did, or 20, 30, 40 years like I have some friends that have done, there's things there's life lessons that you pull away from the military that hold you and really ground you. You were asking me earlier if I'm nervous about doing this broadcast, and no, I'm not. Not just because I've done these type of things before, but when people ask me, when I enter a situation, it's different for me, because it's like, well, here's my bar, right? Like this is my bar, and this is all the craziness that comes from the military. So as long as we don't exceed that bar, I'm good. And there's a lot here, even though life is crazy, especially throughout the last 2 years we've been living this crazy life. There's things that come close, there's like, but ultimately, keeping yourself grounded, remembering who you are, remembering your values and things like that, it keeps everything right below that crazy.
So the military helped you raise your capacity, that bar, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
The one thing I tell people about combat, if you ever wonder what combat is 23 hours of strict boredom, followed by 30 minutes of complete, utter adrenaline rush, followed by 30 minutes of trying to figure out what the hell's going on.
Sounds about like our show sometimes.
Yeah, right. I mean,
but I think that's exactly how we do it.
But if you think about
23 hours waiting, anticipating the show.
Right, and you think about
1 hour of and then after we're like, what just happened?
Right, and that echoes across a lot of places in life. It's not just something that's the military.
Yep.
But if you go with whatever your background is or whatever your situation is, that's life. Life is nothing more than 23 hours a day of boredom,
preparation.
Prep, followed by that time of action, followed by that time of reflection.
Okay, so I love this. I want to hang on this for a minute, because our favorite thing on this show is to go off course. So we're going to do that. And so
I got coffee.
I think of the chaos, and I'm blind here, so I'm just going to trust that you guys can hear me. because you can't see me, because that's how it works, right? Because I can't see, you can't hear.
You're just gonna have a weird suntan. That's all.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a weird suntan. But I think of like as we're growing up, a lot of times we have this really unorganized, chaotic life, and a lot of people still do that. They just whatever comes, and they just take it like it is. And so there's this version of life that's really chaotic and no structure whatsoever. Then on the opposite extreme, you have military, which is highly structured. Everything is organized. And so there's this balancing between the two worlds of, like you say, there's this threshold where you just feel this comfort of, I can go to highly structured, I can go to chaos, but there's a rebalancing, a homeostasis almost. And I think there is a balancing between, you know, getting out there and having structure in your life and pushing towards your dreams and visions versus just hoping that it's going to come about. You know, does that make sense where I'm going with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, like, and don't get me wrong, I'm not like, I have my normal things. Like every morning I wake up, make my coffee, you know, there's things I do every day.
Yeah.
But it's not to the point where like, it's super regimented, you know, like there's still chaos, there's still crazy.
Yeah.
And, you know, we call those days Mondays, you know, or Tuesdays or whatever day of the week it is.
Whenever you start.
Right. And
Thursday afternoon.
You're describing my life like perfectly, man.
But, you know,
and giving me hope.
But there, you know, the for me, the secret really is just to remember what the ultimate objective is. You know, whether it's, oh man, I got a day full of back-to-back meetings. Let me get through this day of meetings. To, oh man, I got this project at work. Let me get through this project. Or, man, my family's coming over. Lord help me, I gotta get through this, right? Because I don't think nothing's more crazy than family, right? Like let's, but as long as you keep yourself and have some sort of, at least for me, have some sort of, okay, this is my bar. This is as much as I can sustain today.
Yeah.
Right. And that's another thing too. Like that bar can change from day to day. Some days, like, you know, like, you know, you're feeling really good. That bar might go up a few ticks. Whereas there's other days where like your bar is just down.
Yeah.
You know, because of whatever you're exhausted from the week, or you're super stressed out, or you're sick, or whatever. This lowers your, but having that internal gauge to say, okay, this is what I can handle today.
Yeah, I like that.
Shaping your day to make sure that the curve just, you know, you can kiss the bar, right? Like, but the important thing is just remember to bring yourself down.
To be conscious of it, right? Like,
yeah,
my threshold today is this. I'm going to stay within that today. Tomorrow it might be here.
Right.
And the other thing that you brought up, Ben, like you're a phenomenal coach here. Like if people would hear it, I think they would hear some amazing things for themselves. And as you're listening, here's what I want to highlight. You spend 23 hours preparing or in boredom. Nothing's happening. 30 minutes in action. 30 minutes figuring out what happened, like an analysis, right? Trying to figure out what happened. And back to 23 hours of boredom. And I think there's this concept in life that it should always be exciting. There should always be things happening, that any action I take should be creating a result. And it might be, I look at this event that we're doing today, and I look at the time that I've spent just preparing and getting ready for it. I'm going to go into it. I'm going to forget every bit of that. I'm going to step into this world where it's like my mind shuts down, and then I'm speaking from whatever I practiced. And then afterwards, I'll probably analyze it and be like, what happened? But it's such a small fraction of all of the preparation.
Yeah.
Does that bring something up?
Yeah. And the one thing you got to remember too, is like everything in life doesn't have to be, you know, at 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
You know, some of the best time I have to recharge myself is just sitting around, you know, my fire, either outside when it's not 26 degrees outside like it is today.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not in the nice warmth of Phoenix, Arizona. I'm freezing my butt off here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So it's 26. It's
I'm one of those that rubs it in. I'm like, oh, it's so hot.
Oh, it's so hot.
So hot.
Oh.
Whew, I gotta go dip in the pool.
But
one of
during this show, it just leaves, comes back, all like glistening with water.
But the thing is like,
what's up, Steve Hardison?
When you also got to find time to relax. Like the one thing I do for myself for relaxing is like I have a cigar. I'm going to be doing that this afternoon while I watch the hockey game. I'll be smoking a cigar.
Man,
we're
coming to Pittsburgh. We're on our way.
Let's go. Come on.
Let's go.
We're doing it.
But I think a lot of people get so wrapped up in this concept of I have to be doing something. I got to be running. I got to be charging forward, and they forget that sometimes the best way to charge forward is to sit back, and look at what's going on, because we're so, this world nowadays where we're connected through these little tiny computers in our pocket, and everything is now. We forget to say, hey, whoa, time out, give me 2 minutes. Relax.
So guilty of not doing that.
So am I. I mean, dude, there's days where I'm just like, oh man, and I'm riding this thing. And then there's times like, honestly, like last night, I was like, okay, I got this TV gig going tomorrow. I need to relax. I need to recharge. Grab my cigars. Sat down. I watched mindless TV.
and then you come on the show and freaking crush it.
Boom.
Right?
But it's useful, right? Like that mindless TV is a relaxation technique in some cases. Like,
yeah. And that's the thing about, and going back to the military, obviously in combat, relaxation takes on a different form.
Yeah.
But even in combat, that you got to have that time to pull yourself back and think, okay, what just happened to me? What's going on? One of my ailments, and I have no problem talking about it, is, I got the PTSD, right? Like I think, or PTS, however you want to look at it.
Yeah.
I don't look at it as a disorder because.
No, I like that. That.
For me, my PTS or PTSD, is nothing more than my brain's normal reaction to a highly abnormal situation.
Okay,
and
so
PTS is definitely not something that is military centric.
Right.
I mean, we all do this, thing called life, and we all have our different reactions. And the interesting thing about PTS or PTSD is that the three of us can go through the exact same action, the exact same time, together, side by side. And I guarantee we'll have 3 different reactions.
Yeah.
Nick, I remember a story, I think it was, and I think this is okay to share, about a motorcycle ride with Steve Hardison.
Yeah.
And do you mind telling the story? You don't have to give out names or anything, but just two different
I don't think. Yeah, I don't think so. I had a conversation with Steve Hardison, and he had a buddy that rides a motorcycle. I think it was Steve Hardison had a motorcycle, and he went to his buddy and he said, hey, do you want to go for a ride? And he says, yes. And he goes down this path at 100 miles an hour as fast as he can. And he's weaving in and out in Steve Hardison fashion. Like, this guy has no fears around it. And the guy in the back comes back and he's like, that was the best ride of my life. And then he gets another guy that was standing there waiting for his turn. And he gets on and they go down the exact same path, same experience. And they come back and he's like, are you trying to kill me? You're crazy. I will never ride with you again.
Yeah.
Same experience, but 2 different versions of the story. And Steve, if I blew that up and told it wrong, you can let me know. But the idea there is what you just described, is we could have 3 different outcomes with the same event.
Yeah.
Like, everybody tells their story.
And that's why I don't consider it a disorder.
Yeah.
Because, for me, a disorder, again, I'm not a clinical psychologist or like I'm a computer guy.
Yeah.
It's for it to be a disorder, it would have to be something that's not sustainable.
Yeah.
And if you look at it, my PTS is really the manifestation of what kept me alive. Now, granted, some of those actions back here in the States are kind of, people look at you kind of like side-eyed, or like, what is he doing? Like, why is he looking for all the doors? Why is he scanning rooftop? Why is he doing all this stuff?
Yeah.
But that's what kept me alive for the better half of 4 years, was doing all that kind of, weird stuff. And to your motorcycle story, the one guy that's driving the bike, that's his normal. Like, he's used to it. He's ready to go.
Yeah.
The first guy, like, he's ready to go. Like, that's cool with him. And then the second guy, he might have won be in a sidecar or something.
Right. In a sidecar on a video game safe in a home,
Yeah.
I just want to highlight, because you are dropping some nuggets that I think are so valuable. One is that there is a need for structure. Like, that structure is necessary. Two is that you're going to have a threshold, and it's going to change day by day of what you can handle that day.
And sometimes minute by minute.
Minute by minute. So you choose your threshold and how much you can handle. And when you come up against that, you start recognizing your boundaries and your borders. You can pull back, or if you allow it to go past, what's going to happen. There's going to be some things that occur in your life that might be uncomfortable. The other thing is that most of your time is going to be spent in creation, preparation, practicing, planning, boredom. About 1% is going to be in that heavy action that's actually going to create something impactful in your life. Now, I just throw out an arbitrary number, but it's just that your proportions of preparing and planning and practicing are going to be different from the actions. And it's that preparation that prepares you for the time that it's go time, it's battle time, it's time to get into the field and start creating your vision, because you have to get into the field, right? There's no just practicing 24/7. That doesn't work. But a lot of people do that, right?
Yeah, you can't sit. Again, I think the key word is balance.
Yeah,
and I think that's one thing we all struggle with. I don't care if you are, if you have 1 million degrees from all these prestigious universities, or, you're that 18-year-old kid trying to figure out what's the next step in life.
right.
Balance is that key word. And sometimes, I know for myself, balance is also one of the things I struggle with.
Yeah.
But people need to realize that the preparation, there's a saying, I don't know if it's, with good preparation comes good result, whatever.
Yeah.
But people often want to skip over the preparation because they want to feel like that they're moving forward.
Yeah.
And if you take it back to the combat, if you discharge head on into the building, thinking, oh, it's just a building, I can take this, and you don't have your fire team stacked behind you, you go through that door, and now you're alone because you didn't pause for the 2 seconds that you need to prep. Or worse yet, you're in a condition where you need your weapon. You didn't take the time the night before to clean that weapon. You raise it up, you pull the trigger, and it jams. So 2 minutes of preparation has cost you possibly your life. And to bring it back here to the real, to this side of the world, when I see something like a meeting coming up, or, an interview like this, if I don't take a few minutes to prepare, things can look bad, or, it may not be the result that I want. So sometimes you got to pause, come back down, and now you're ready to charge forward.
I want to play with this. I want to play with this a little bit. So Richard Paul Evans says that chaos is the mind of creation, but lack of planning creates chaos. And so, but for somebody that's prepared and knows how to plan, they can take that chaos and turn it into creation if they'll plan. And it doesn't take a lot. Like what you're describing, there's 2 minutes of preparation could change your life. Before you go into a meeting, if you created yourself as something before you went into that meeting, that preparing for that meeting would allow you to show up more fully and more present. So planning is vital. Like we talked to James Melanchek. Ryan, do you want to share that a little bit about jumping without a net?
The essence of it was that so many people, they'll have this dream or this vision or this goal or something they want to do, a business or whatever, and so they'll just jump off the high dive with no plan, no nothing. It's just that I want to do this thing. I want to be, maybe it's a professional high diver, but they don't have the high diving experience. They've never been on the high dive. They don't.
And there's no water in the pool.
Yeah, there's no water in the pool. All this stuff, right? They just jump.
Yeah.
And then they wonder why they crash and burn or splatter on ground of sorts when they hit the cement, because they didn't plan a little bit, take that time to make sure that, look, maybe there's some ways that I can not get burned or the not hit the cement. Maybe I could fill the pool with water first. Maybe I could get a coach that'll teach me how to do the high diving. There could be whatever. But essentially, that's the thing is so many people do that, and then they wonder why it failed or why it didn't work out for them.
Yeah.
Or worse, blame it on other people.
One great example of my preparedness is bringing it back to the organization. When I made the decision to get my service dog, I knew my life was gonna utterly change, because it's not. Yes, anytime you add an animal to your house, life changes, right? Like whether it's a cat, a dog, a two-legged animal called a child, whatever, you got to prepare yourself. So
I got 4 of those in my house.
Yeah,
they're pretty awesome.
I got 3 kids now.
I'm a pet owner too.
But it takes about a year to get through the process with Guardian Angels to receive your service dog. And through that year, you're preparing. You're talking with the trainers down in Williston, Florida. They are preparing the dog for you. You're meeting with them. All this preparation. I talk to work. I talk to my HR and my benefits. Say, hey, heads up, I'm doing this. I wasn't asking for permission because they can't deny it, but I'm letting them know, hey, in a few weeks, months, there's going to be a dog here 24/7.
Okay, so pause. Hang on to your thought train there for a minute. But I'm not asking for permission. I'm telling you what I'm doing. Like a declaration like that. When we go and we tell people our dreams and visions, I want to tie this in as we often ask for permission to do it. Like we look for permission to go out there and do something crazy or something incredible or this idea that we have, versus saying, this is what I'm doing and diving in. But keep going. I just want to anchor that in.
Yeah. So, going back to the preparation, I had to fill out a packet of paperwork. I had to supply things like bank statements, pictures of where I work and live, statements from friends, because while the dog is supplied to me at no cost, and each service dog from Guardian Angels is valued about $25,000. But thanks to donations, and we'll talk about donations in a minute, because there is a sales pitch. Always a hook, right? There's always a sales pitch.
Perfect.
But
for $19.99.
Thanks to our donors, I was able to receive Bolt for no cost. Now, obviously, out here, everything's on me now. And Bolt's a significant expense, a monthly expense between her food and taking her to get spa days, get her nails trimmed, and all that stuff. But again, preparation. And then when we finally got the phone call that Bolt was ready, they felt I was ready, then we had to prepare for the actual trip. My wife had to make sure she had the time off. I had to make sure that work knew I was taking the time off and all this other stuff. And now fast forward 2 years later, almost 3, the success that I've had is due to the preparation that I put in. And, now I'm part of the program where applicants talk to us, talk to other established teams, and ask us questions. And the first thing I tell them is prepare yourself, because life changes when you have a 70-pound shadow, right? Because while Bolt is highly trained, highly educated, too dang smart for her own good sometimes, at the end of the day, she's still a dog, and she's thinking. Like a service dog is always looking, always thinking.
Never shuts it off, right?
Yeah. And so you got to be ready for, that means, simple thing like when we're done here, I need to run to the grocery store, which I hate going to grocery stores, but I need coffee.
Yeah, gotta have it.
Gotta have it. But before I had Bolt, jump in the car, gone. Now it's okay. I get Bolt dressed, got to get this, got to do, again, prep for that 2 minutes of action.
Yeah. So there's the word anticipation, right? Anticipation means to bring into your space sooner. And in anticipation of Bolt, you had to prepare the space, yourself, the whole environment to receive Bolt into your space. So there's a creation and a planning on creating that as a possibility, Bolt as a possibility. There's another set of planning for receiving Bolt. And so there's planning on two parts that I think people need to be aware of. Is one of the planning around creating your creation, and then number two around preparing yourself to receive that creation. Because sometimes we create our creation, but then we don't have the capacity to receive it. So it comes in and it's gone as quick as it comes in.
Yeah. I mean, to the, the high diver analogy,
yeah,
your preparation is to climb that ladder first, but you also got to make sure that there's water in there.
Yeah.
Did the person responsible for filling the pool, did they prepare?
Yeah.
Hopefully the answer is yes. Because if not, that's going to be a very shallow splash.
Might hurt a little bit.
Yeah, it might.
Yeah.
Well, it's not. It's not the falling that hurts. It's just the sudden
high
stop.
dive, shallow splash.
Sudden stop.
Sudden stop when you realize there's no water in there.
Yeah, like oh shit, it doesn't feel so good.
No, but again, to bring it back into how to bring that analogy in the real world, anything that you go through, whether it's a meeting or launching a new project or whatever, that's your high dive.
Yeah.
And if you didn't take the time to prepare yourself, well, there's no water in your pool.
Yeah. Wow. No water in your pool. I mean, if we had that as a shirt, hey, there's no water in your pool. It simply means put some water in your pool. Make sure you're prepared to receive. Like without planning, I love that we learn in kind of chunks around certain concepts here when it comes to the Giants. I mean, we'll go through a phase where it's just all about planning. It'll be all about receiving. It'll be all about manifestation. Like, and our guests seem to line up with that. And we don't plan that out necessarily that our guests will do that, but the conversation naturally leads that direction. And lately we had James Melanchek on last week, and he's the secret millionaire on NBC. And he's taught thousands of people, tens of thousands of people around the world how to create a powerful speaking company. And he talks about the importance of preparation, but then there's a balancing of you can only prepare so far, so you have to trust that the how will somehow connect, right? You let go of the how, even though you've prepared, there's a possibility that the path you created might not be the one that brings it in.
Mm-hmm.
And so letting go and having some surrender to the idea that, yeah, you could create a path and you should create a path, but trust that that might not be the one that gets you where you're going, right? I mean, we've experienced that over and over again. We plan, and then something comes out of left field, and we're like, we didn't even see it on the radar when we planned. And it was exactly what we needed because of our planning. We were able to see it.
And pretty soon you're dressing like the guy.
Yeah.
And that's something the military does too. When we plan an objective, somebody just commented, learn to swim first.
It's true, right? Like all this planning, right?
Yeah, we're talking about diving and we don't even know how to swim yet. But the military always has, you have your plan A, all the way to Plan Z, right?
Yeah.
That's Canadian for Z.
For Z, yeah.
Just in case anyone needed translation there, I got you.
The one thing I've carried forward with me is I always have an exit plan. Again, I'll use today as an example. I have to go to the grocery store. I hate going to grocery stores because it really brings up my anxiety through my PTS, because there's a lot of moving going on. There's people coming from this direction and that direction. It's noisy. It's, it checks every single box for me for this is going to suck.
Yeah. You have a checklist, right? Like
pretty much. Yeah. Like,
oh,
noisy. Yep. People coming from all directions. Yep.
I haven't been through combat and I have that.
Right.
Yeah.
Like you go Black Friday shopping one time.
Right. But before I had Bolt and before I started going to the VA for my treatment, because the one thing I tell people too is these dogs are not a cure. It's a treatment plan, but it's not a cure.
Yeah.
But when I go, I always have a backup strategy plan. If things get too crazy, what can I do? The one thing I tell people is there was one time, this is years ago. I went to the grocery store to do some shopping, right? Doesn't sound that bad. And my anxiety got to the level where I exceeded my bar, right? I mean, I left the grocery cart full of groceries right there in the middle of the store. I ran out. Yeah. I couldn't. Again, I exceeded my bar for that day. So now, when my wife and I go out, or whether I go out with friends and stuff, there's always a backup plan. Like I plan to have a cigar in my garage. Well, if my space heater runs out of heat, I guess my backup plan is to put the cigar out and come inside because I'm not going to freeze.
Yeah.
And again, I think that's where a lot of people, they get so laser focused. They put the blinders on.
It's all the eggs in one basket kind of a mentality, right? And so there is nothing.
And they're like, oh, well, I am going to do this.
Yeah.
And this is how I'm going to get there.
Yep.
And sometimes those plans don't necessarily work out. And sometimes you got to adjust fire left, or I guess.
Let me ask you a question, Ben. So like some of those, this is on the mental health side of things. And that, I like the analogy too, because you can use that in business, you can use that in relationships, you can use it in all kinds of things. But on the mental health side of things, what are some of the tools? Like, what is a plan B? What are some of the options that you can have as, tools in your tool belt for when, something like that happens? I mean, it could be anxiety, depression, PTSD, like what are some of the things that Ben does or that has learned when you exceed your bar? How do you pull it back or refocus or get it back in line or whatever you might call it something different? What does Ben do?
And that's the one key thing there too. What does Ben do? Full disclaimer again, I am not a medical or psychological professional. These are my opinions. Please talk to your doctor for actual treatment. But the shoe doesn't fit everybody.
Right.
Some of my backup plans now, because they've changed since getting Bolt. Now I know if I need a few minutes, I'll find a quiet spot in the store I'm at. Normally right outside the bathrooms. Great place, right? But it helps. I now with my wife, we'll try to go to places together because my wife is a good barometer to kind of see, hey Ben, you got to pause for a second, because as one of the problems that veterans have, myself included, is we hate to ask for help. We're the people that people called upon for help, right? So the idea of asking for help for ourselves is like, nah, I don't need help. I'll help you.
I like
Yeah.
that barometer because somebody could, whether that's a spouse, whether that's a friend, a coach,
Yeah. And
because
so it's, and that's what
that'll
I'm
help
getting
you
at is,
recognize too, like, oh, that's like they notice when you're coming up to it. So then in turn, it helps you become conscious and aware, like, hey, Ben, this is, I can see it in your actions and how you're being. Okay, now you're like, oh, now I see it too. And you can stay below that bar. Or if you do
yeah.
go over the bar, they're there to help just, support and guide and refocus, right?
Yeah. And that's one thing these service dogs are trained to do. Bolt's trained to kind of pick up on my changes.
Yeah.
So going to the grocery store with the service dog is interesting because what she does now, if we're coming up to an aisle, she'll walk just a few steps ahead of me, look down the aisle, and kind of make sure she stops people because nothing makes people stop in their tracks like a 70-pound German Shepherd.
Mm.
And then she waits for me, and then as I cross the aisle, she comes right back and she assumes her position.
Beautiful.
Which is one step behind me. And that
Now,
helps.
let me create something here with you. You think of crosshairs, right, on a scope, and you've got your threshold, right? So your threshold is what you can handle. Then you also have your ultimate objective this way, right? And so you have your service dog that helps you align with your ultimate objective.
Mm-hmm.
Or actually, the service dog helps you with your threshold so that you can align with your objective. So there's this balancing of staying in your threshold, and maybe you could stretch a little beyond that, but then there's this realignment with your objective, your goal, which in that case would be going to the store. Ryan and I know this from RVing, is that you'll have an objective, ultimate objective, and then the chaos comes in and it'll take you off course. So if you haven't documented or written down or created a way to come back to your ultimate objective, then you'll be taken off course into the chaos of whatever comes. And so you've got to have a way to reconnect if the chaos comes in and you go off target, to realign with that ultimate objective. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you've got this threshold up and down, ultimate objective left to right, which allows you to keep moving forward towards your target. Is that okay as an analogy there?
Yeah, and I think that that's something that people can take away from this. Whether you're a combat veteran or you're just a person.
Yeah.
Understanding that balance of, okay, here's my ultimate objective. Here's how I plan to get there. But I know that this can derail me,
Yeah.
Like, again, preparing to go to the store. Traffic could be really bad, right? Because it's Pittsburgh and it's snowing and it's ice. So maybe I have to take a different way.
Yeah.
Or what if, heaven forbid, they don't have the coffee I want? Well, now what?
Yeah, so that's beautiful. And sorry, Hugh, that was me, not Ryan, that did. He's like, don't post this, and then I posted immediately because I can't see the screen. But that's one of those things, is we have this objective for the show, right? It's this vertical line that this is where we're going. And then we have a threshold of what comes in, and then we have this stuff that comes in from the outside. So we have comments and things that come in, and sometimes we get a little distracted, but we always come back. We pull it back in. So we might have this pulling away and pull it back in. I look at your service animal at Bolt, and Bolt is keeping you on this horizontal, just walking down the line, making sure that you're able to stay steady so that you can reach your ultimate objective. And if we don't have a Bolt, what are some other ways that people can realign with that, right? If there's no Bolt in your life, how can you create it so that you realign with your ultimate objective?
Yeah, and so I'll tell you this story real quick.
Yep. Love stories.
So when I got out in 2008, I moved here to Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I never been to Pittsburgh a day in my life before 2008. I moved here because my ex-wife was born and raised here in Pittsburgh, and she moved here with our kids. I'll get to Hugh's question in a second.
Yep.
she moved here with our kids. So that kind of, and at the time we were married, I knew I wanted to stay in the IT field. We looked at a couple different places that we might want to settle, and we ultimately decided on Pittsburgh because we had support structure. The IT jobs here are pretty decent. All the start checking all these boxes. But I was never here. So my initial plan was to get out, find a good job, start making money, and start living life. Well, that plan got derailed because, again, the one thing veterans are very, very, very bad at is asking for help. And I found myself reporting to Captain Jack, Captain Morgan, however you want to call it.
Yeah.
And I
was going to go with Sparrow.
Yeah.
I'm like, probably not the right captain.
I spent the better half of 2 years drowning my thoughts because, I don't need the VA. I don't want to be a number. I don't need treatment. I'm good. I just need this drink, and then a drink turned into drinks. And that went on for almost 2 years. And in October of 2010, I remember it because it was right on my birthday. My daughter, who's now 15 years old, going on 30, she came up to me, and I was on the couch. I was inebriated, and this is the same girl that was only 3 weeks old when I left my last tour in 2006. And she said to me, she goes, "Daddy, I want to play." And I looked at her little face, and I said to her, "Daddy can't play." Those words, I swear I saw them come out of my mouth. They did a 180, and they slapped me. Since that day, I've changed my processes. It's not necessarily about having a service dog. It's about having a support. So that day, I started to get connected into the veteran community. I started figuring out people that I could talk to and say, "Hey, I need to bend your ear for 5 minutes," or "Hey, do you want to go to Starbucks with me real quick and grab a coffee? I need to vent. I need to get this off my chest."
Man.
And that's where a lot of things started coming together. And that's why when I do these type of things, I don't have a problem sharing my story. Yeah, it's not, all this great stuff, but if it helps one person to reflect and say, "You know what? I hear you. I need to take that and develop that into my plan," then I achieved the objective for today. Hugh asked in the comments, how often do I have to put myself beyond my limits? Man, daily. Sometimes hourly, like we were talking about earlier, you have that threshold bar and you try your best to stay just below it. But obviously, the best laid plans can go to waste in a second. So there's times where you have to pull yourself and say, "Hey, okay, look, I know it's right above my bar for today, but I need to do this to get there." But I think what's important is once you get that objective done, you got to bring yourself back down.
You said something, Ben, at the beginning. You talked about like everybody's bar, and your bar, could be higher or lower at different times. We talk in our show a lot of times about everybody's Everest, right? Everybody's pinnacle, everybody's point is different. And I love the distinction of the day-to-day, minute-to-minute, because that's real life, right? Like so many times we get caught up in seeing other people being or doing something and going, "Oh, okay, well, to be successful, I have to do it that way, or I have to be that person." And the truth is that you weren't made to be that person. Your experiences are different. Your your ability or capacities could be different. You could have gone through trauma, abuse, combat, and had different things happen that then make you way different, than your neighbor or anybody.
Right.
And it allows for some grace, right? Like if somebody can pause and see that and say, okay, it really can calm the mind. It could take some of the pressure off too. Like that's a lot of pressure to try to live up to some bar that's been set, in your mind. Does that make sense what I'm talking about?
Yeah, and I was just reading Dorothy's comments there. And the one thing I'll tell Dorothy directly, and not to call you out, but yeah, part of the reason that we don't like to ask for help is, I guess, shame is a good word to say, good word to use. We don't want to be seen as a number, a statistic, because we already checked all those boxes. But again, when things go sideways, we're the people that are called upon to fix things. Look at when a hurricane hits the coast. National Guardsmen are in there in minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing I'll tell you, Dorothy, as a veteran spouse, you were there with him when he was going through his time, but you need to set yourself some time aside to prepare yourself, because you're no good to him. I'm using her as an example, since Dorothy, you're no good to him unless you're prepared. You got to have these talks. You really, the one thing that my, again, going to preparing for Bolt, one of the first things I did was I went to my wife. We were dating at the time, and I said, I want to do this. I really want to do this. And we sat down and we talked about it. And her first question to me was, how's a dog going to help you? She was she came right out and punched me in the face with that question. She wasn't like, oh yeah, this is great. Oh no, she was like, how's a dog going to help you? And we sat down and talked. Now, fast forward 2 years later, my wife will be one of the first people to tell you, not only after receiving Bolt, but now, I'm back in my treatment plans and stuff like that with the VA. My reactions to things are a lot better. I still have a short fuse, right? But it burns a little bit slower now.
Huh.
But again, when it comes to the veteran spouse, spouses were called upon to fill both roles in the family for years. Some deployments last 6 months, some last 18 months. But the spouse is called upon to fill both roles. And one of the hardest things for veterans to get used to is coming back home and not jumping back in and trying to take back their role. I struggled with that. Before I left, I took care of the checkbooks. I paid the bills. Well, I'm gone. My now ex-wife had to do all that stuff. And I had to remind myself, I couldn't just come in, grab the checkbook from her and say, I got this. Because I don't know the status of the bills. I wasn't here last week when the bills went out. So military spouses are such a good accompaniment to our treatment plans, because to your point earlier, your other plan, when things go sideways, what's that plan? It could just be your spouse saying, hey, honey, breathe.
We had a conversation the other night with Bill Schuffenhauer. He's an Olympic silver medalist in the bobsled, and he was on our show on Thursday, and he talked about a similar thing, is that you go off to war, you go off to the Olympics, you go off to this other life, and there's all this going out here, and your spouse isn't a part of that, your partner. And then you go from that world that is totally different from this world, and then you come back in and you try and pick up where you left off, and they've moved on so far beyond you that where you come in and pick up is just totally offsetting for what they've created.
Mm-hmm.
And like learning to work with it, it's not just military. I mean, it's anybody that's out there doing something that's outside of your partnership in a way. It's like, if you're not there creating it together, that could create some challenges. So you have to work through that. And so am I hearing you correctly? It's kind of that.
Yeah, no, that's exactly. And again, it's not military centric.
Yeah.
It could be, it could just be maybe that day, or before the craziness of the last 2 years, I used to travel rather frequently, and so maybe I'd be in a different state for a couple of days, and I'd come back and have to like reintegrate.
Yeah. Wow.
Because again, like, even for this hour that we've been talking, my spouse right now, she's at our church because that's what she wanted to do today with our child. Perfectly fine. When we, we'll get together and we'll reintegrate and we'll come back as a unit, and then she'll go to work for today because she works at a restaurant where she's a back of house manager. So with that in mind, I work a 9-to-5 corporate job. Her schedule is all over the map, but we always make sure that we come together at the end of the day before we go to bed or whatever to go through our days and say, okay, this is what, here's some of my challenges. How can I help you? I mean, yesterday, the biggest thing that I need to do for us was laundry. Before we went live, we were talking about the modern day of the no pants day.
Yeah.
Well, I need clothes, so you always got to plan with your partner. And I think, military spouses hit that head on. And I think what happens, and I could speak from seeing it, a lot of people get involved with a veteran because I don't know if it's the uniform or the haircut or whatever, but they're like, oh, I want to date this military man. And
that's exactly what they say. Like,
yeah. Just like that too.
Just like
I hear it all over on the street.
Yeah. But they don't necessarily prepare themselves for what that means. And I think that's one reason that the divorce rates amongst the military community is, I think the last stat I saw was almost 60%.
Yeah. Wow.
Nationwide, it's 50% amongst humans, people, everybody.
Like you say, it's not military centric. It's anybody that's doing something outside of their partner. If there's not that reintegration, and even within our partnership, I look at me and Ryan Morris, we work together, and we've worked together for almost 2 years, over 2 years now. Mm-hmm. And we always have this checking in. Like we go and do our thing, and then we pull back together, even in a business partnership.
Yep.
Whether you're dating somebody or whatever, you've got to have that reintegration where let's get back on the same page. Yeah, I might be over here doing this and you're over here doing that, but let's bring it back together so that we're all on the same page again.
Yeah, and again, it's the idea of maintaining your bar.
Yeah.
Like by coming together, every week my team at work, we have a weekly team meeting. If my boss is watching this, I'm sorry for saying this, but I don't really necessarily look forward to it every week.
Yeah.
I have those too. I mean,
but at the same time, it's good. It's good to come back and say, okay, this is what Ben's working on. This is, blah, blah's working on this, or someone's working on that, and come back together. With these service dogs, they have trainers, they have the staff to help us pair, they have the staff that runs the organization. All three of those come together to get the service dog in the hands of the recipient.
Yeah,
and change our lives.
Ben, I feel like I could go on for hours with you. You have dropped so many useful tools and tips, and we're at the hour already, which I can't even believe. It went by quick. But I do want to hear like one final piece of wisdom for the show. If you were to impart one thing that you would carry with you, if you were to go back in time and start over, what would you have shared that you would have carried forward? Does that make sense?
I'll word it like this. So, they often say, if you can go back in time, what would you tell your younger self?
Yeah.
If I can go back in time and tell my younger self anything, it would be stop and look. Take that time to prepare yourself. Don't always go in thinking that you have to push the mountain forward. Sometimes, you just got to push the pebble and get it rolling. And eventually it'll pick up and pick up and pick up. Because I think, especially early on, I think back to some of the things I did when I was much younger in the military. I always thought that I had to like hit and get pushing forward the fastest, and that doesn't necessarily always bring the best outcomes.
I love that. The start small before you go big. It really applies even on big stuff. It's still this movement, starting with pebbles before you roll boulders. What a great analogy. I love that. Thank you. Ryan, do you have some other thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I try not to come into shows with like preconceived notions, and sometimes I won't even dive too deep into their bio because my mind will create an outcome of exactly what I thought the show would go.
Yeah.
I like to get an idea of the person. A lot of the people maybe we've friended or we've been referred, their story. But this went in a beautiful way that I didn't see coming. Yet we knew that it would serve because of Ben's experience. And I just love the creation that occurred right here, where we could take a military experience and the things that Ben's been through and also apply it through a broad spectrum of life for everybody.
Yeah.
And so it serves, there's people on here that have military spouses. There's people that don't know anybody that maybe that's particularly in the military close to them, but they can take all of these concepts and principles that Ben shared and then apply them in their life and see where their bar is. Maybe even they can start being just aware of that. They could give themselves some grace for the times that they go over the bar. A lot of the things that Ben was talking about today have so much application in general life. And so, Ben, I appreciate you, man, for being who you are, for the experiences, good, bad, all of the experiences that you've had, because they led you to right here, right now, to spend some time with us and to serve our community. And this will go out, and our community will go out and take your message or parts of your message, and that ripple effect will continue to go for a long ways, man. So what you're doing matters, and we appreciate you, and we appreciate Bolt for being there with you. And if there's opportunity to come do some of the stuff, I saw Nicole invited you to the radio show, where she's like, please come do the radio show with us. We have a radio show. Yeah. We've got other people that have shows, and we'd love to have you on possibly as a guest in the future if you wouldn't mind coming on with us.
Yeah, and if you don't mind the sales pitch, if anyone's interested in learning more about Bolt and our Guardian Angels Medical Service Dogs, she's on social media. She has her own Instagram. She has her own Facebook page. It's just look for Bolt Service Dog. If you are a veteran or know a veteran that might benefit from receiving a medical alert service dog, feel free to reach out and start asking questions. Because it's not you're not driving to the shelter and adopting a dog. She's a medical device. It's Bolt _ service dog on Instagram.
Bolt _ service dog.
Yeah,
I might get that here eventually. Let's see.
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's make sure we get it in the comments if you want to comment in there as well, and we'll make sure that we get that link in there as well, Ben.
For sure.
And for those that are watching, I mean, Is there anything else? Go ahead. I don't want to cut you
No,
off.
I was gonna say, but
Yep.
yeah, if you know a veteran or are a veteran that is kicking around the idea of getting a service dog, feel free to reach out. I have no problem answering questions. I'm not the subject matter expert. That's the staff in Florida, but if you have questions of how life is, feel free to ask.
I love it. Yeah,
That's
definitely
awesome.
do that. As we wrap up, for those of you who are watching, just remember you are exactly where you're supposed to be. You're right on time. You're doing exactly what you should be doing in the creation that you're creating, whatever that is. It's your creation. And so what Ben offered today in the show is just some tools to really help you stay focused on not only you and your well-being, but your ultimate objective. And I love the crosshairs thing because you really just gave us a new tool and a new way of looking at this that just makes it even more powerful. So thanks for being on the show. For those that are watching, yeah.
Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Join us next week for another awesome guest. We will see you live stream today in the Ultimate Experience. This is broadcasting out globally through Facebook, and we've got about 400 people in a room here. We are changing the world. So if you haven't seen that, make sure you tune in. Go to the Ultimate. Is it the Ultimate Coach?
Ultimate Coach Facebook group. Yep.
To live stream it. So if you can't be here in Phoenix today, go to that group and sign up so that you can watch the live stream. Love you guys. Make it a giant day, and we'll see you in the next video.
Be safe,
Love
everybody.
You too.